Hello everybody, it is Ed, and today I am doing another book review. This one is very different from my normal review. Stephen King books are coming, chill guys, but I went online and I searched for this book to see if there were any other reviews, and it turns out there's only one that I could find actually. Maybe it's because it's early in the year. I guess this is a relatively new book, but it is Black Chuck by Reagan McDonald. Yep, Reagan McDonald, that's the one. So, this is I thought it was a horror book at first. And although it is kind of a horror book, it's really a contemporary. I guess it is. It's a contemporary. I don't know how to put a genre on this, but it is pretty spooky, this one. Now, the reason that I chose to do this book is the reason I even chose to read this book, because I don't read contemporaries, if you know. Right here, you can see that it is a White Pine book from my school. Yep, White Pine Award nominee. So, if you're not familiar with the process, in Canadian schools, I don't know if it's anywhere else or just Ontario or something, there are about 10 books, I believe, fictional books that you can read. If you read one, you get to go to an event. If you read 5, you get to go and vote for your best book, and at the end of the day, at the end of the trip, you get to see who won the best book of the year or something. And this is one of the 10 books that you need to read. And you don't need to read them all, but this is the one I picked because it was horror and I was feeling really Stephen King-ish. And it was October at the time. Right now it is the end of November, so this book has been a long time coming, my god. So, first of all, I do want to say, if you want to see my reviews real time, go to the description down below and click the link to my Goodreads. You can see every book that I'm reading currently, every book that I'm finished, and see all my reviews real time, and you can see what I've rated if you go all the way down. In the description I always write what I rated it. But I didn't rate this particularly well, because of a couple reasons. Before we go and do that, I need to start off with the best stuff. Obviously, this is actually not a bad book at all, because I went into this book thinking this was garbage. I was hopeful that it was going to be the best of the bunch. Turns out it's not that great on Goodreads, but I did end up enjoying it at the end, you know, getting through it. It was a very quick read, and by the end there was a ton of tension pulling it together, and I think Reagan McDonald does a really good idea at tying together a bunch of stuff at the ending. I loved it, you know, honestly. I took a good chunk of my day, an hour, and it was really late as well. I think it was like 11, and I had to wake up very early the next day. So I took a good chunk of my day to just finish off this book because it was really good at the end. So I have to say that before I go on to any of the bad stuff. But there are a couple other good things that I do want to mention. For example, I think the conflict in this book was very tightly put together throughout the entire thing. I guess at the halfway point it gets really tight, and I enjoyed that. I also really enjoyed the culture, because often I don't say, you know, we need to add culture, we love culture and blah blah. I don't talk about that because I don't care, I want a good book. Canadian culture just doesn't do it for this book. It's good and all, but I think that the Aboriginal First Nation something culture was very cool. I enjoyed it quite a bit because these are just things that you can't get in normal Canadian culture because they don't exist. They're so they're not with us. So yeah, you know, it added a lot of things that I've never expected to read in the book. And there's a ton of really awesome cultures that are in the real world apparently, and I get to learn about them through this. So I usually don't say this, but this culture in this book was fabulously done. I think it was awesome. Oh, and at the end it says guilt is a hungry demon. So I like that, okay, because I read that and I'm like, oh wow, that's wonderful. I need to go in and read this because I love a good, like, hurt your heart. I've got Crime and Punishment right here, which I would happily read, but you know, look at how dense this thing is, and it's like 700 pages. Not yet, but I love that kind of introspective stuff, so I'm so excited for, so I was very excited to read this book. It seemed so introspective, and it was quite introspective, not nearly as far as I would have hoped it to be, but it was good enough that I enjoyed the book while I read it, but it's just not enough to keep me thinking about it after. You know, I read this book last night. I haven't thought about it like at all since then. It was a good read while it lasted, but after that, you know, I put it down and I didn't care for it after that. So there's not too much memorability in this book, and so it's not going to be anywhere in the top of anything, because if I'm being honest, it's a good book, it's just not memorable. But yeah, this is awesome. I really like the concept. Next thing that I want to talk about that's really good, I like the writing. At the beginning I started the writing and I thought this is horrendous, but at the end it also says, no, at the beginning it says a stunning work of prose, if you can read that over there, by Andrew Smith. At the beginning, I don't know, maybe I should reread the beginning, but I thought that the prose was atrocious. I thought it was garbage. So I don't know. I don't know if it was just me getting out of a Stephen King book and popping into that thing, because Stephen King writes very, very differently from normal people. So it might have just been that, or it could have been that this book is very oddly written at the beginning, but later on, I loved the prose. The prose was wonderful. It just kept me through it. I could really feel stuff as I was going through it, and I enjoyed that a lot. Not many books do that, and I think that the prose in this thing was not succinct. There were some areas that I was just like, this is bad prose, and you don't get that often with, you know, my books over here, but in this one, there were just parts where I was like, this is garbage, but at the same time, there were many parts where I just skimmed 10 pages without even realizing, and that just doesn't happen for me. I notice every page turn and it pulls me out of the story. This one, it didn't. It kept me in the story for a good 10 pages at a time, which may not be a lot for you, but for me, that's really, really good. Okay, I just wanted to go on and talk about all the good things before I started off with the bad things, but, you know, I talked about it a lot. Just know that I do not weigh one more than the other. In my head, they're kind of equal, the good and the bad. So let me get into the bad of this. The beginning, garbage. I hated the beginning. It was so bad. Just trying to get into it, it seemed like such a teenage novel that I was like, this is boring. I don't care. Why should I care? You didn't introduce anything that's going on. I don't care about all these people that all these bad things are happening to, because you haven't introduced them properly yet. And the beginning scenes are just so dumb and badly put together, and it's like, what is going on? What is the point of the beginning? I understand what they're trying to convey, but the actual scene itself, nothing happened that was interesting apart from that one detail that was given. And I absolutely hated the beginning. A good, I would guess maybe a third of it, maybe a sixth of it, the first bit. I would even go so far as to say half of the beginning, or half of the entire book, is garbage. But later on, definitely it improves. It improves quite a bit. Astronomically. It goes way higher. But the beginning of this, I really, really hated, because nothing goes down. Nothing happens at all. And I think that it's just Reagan just trying to, like, she had all of these strings that she just had there, and then she just went along and weaved them together. And at the beginning, it was just strings, and she was like trying to crisscross them, but at some point at the middle of the story it just clicked, and it just got together, and it got good. So beginning, absolute garbage. Ending, absolutely made up for it. Another problem I had with it is the underwhelming ending thing right over there. Guilt of the Hungry Demon, as I said before, underwhelming. It was there, it was present, not nearly as cool as I thought it would be, and that's unfortunate. Now I gotta go on and say that this book really, really made me mad with some of the characters. Okay, I'm not one to like these teenage characters. I don't do that. If you read the book, you kind of know why. But I just don't like them. I'm not a fan of these kind of people. So I just didn't care for them at all. And I didn't care for them at the end of the book either. I cared for the plot more than anything, to see what was happening to them. But if anything happened, like, I wouldn't have cared, you know? And I don't blame it. That's just for me, and I absolutely hate these kind of characters. So I would just kind of drop that altogether just for me. But I'm not going to consider that in my star rating, because that's just a little bit biased. So that was garbage. Also, the characters, although I didn't like them, I think it was also really, really fair to say that it was very cookie cutter characters. We had characters, I guess each character is like two cookie cutter characters mixed. So we've just got a bunch of mixes, but they're not exactly original technically either, because they're just mixes of very common things. And there were very few things about this book that made me really, really think, wow, that's original, that's interesting. Rael's character, something like that, is a really, really good character. I found him very interesting, very, very original. So I'm very happy with him. I liked him quite a bit. But then we have the other characters who were all just the same thing we've seen all the time. So I didn't care. It didn't go anything above and beyond for me. It was just meh. Now, I think that my biggest, maybe one of my biggest problems with this book is the ending. I have talked about quite a bit that I liked the ending. The ending was a good ending. The plot was very, very perfectly tied together, and I found that, it was very interesting at the end. Stuff happened that made sense to the plot, was also really exciting, and made realistic sense. Most of it. There's one bit that I'm like, no, you can't, but it's okay, I won't spoil anything. But my biggest thing about the ending that I have a problem with is how confusing it is. Now, at that point, you have to understand that people are reading very, very quickly. at this point, because some really interesting stuff just went down, and we're just trying to like get through it because it's so cool. And by that point, she's expecting us to sort of pick out small thought fragments that are here and there, and on normal occasions, I would love this. I do love it. That kind of thought process is my favorite to read. I love it when Stephen King does that, especially in Wizard and Glass, right over there. But the problem is that you put it at a point where we were supposed to be really, really going fast, and so it just got drowned out. And by the ending, it was supposed to make sense for us, I guess, but it just didn't make sense. And so Reagan MacDonald knew this. She knew this, so she came together and she tied it up by saying exactly what had happened in a very small sentence and explained it away for us. I like that, but I really, really think that it could have been done by incorporating it better, making it slower, making us absorb the detail, like reinforcing it. This is the ending. We're not going slow to study this kind of stuff. We need to get that information punched into us, but not as one whole pill, as like little bits and pieces just shoved in together, so that we ourselves can come to a conclusion as to what happened in this book. And then we have the confusing flashback, kind of flashback, little by little. I didn't get what was going on there either. The timeline was completely messed up for me, and I don't know what's going on because the descriptions were great. It was just too specific, and I didn't pick them all up while I was going fast. And so we ended up picking it up at the end, and still, to this point, I have no proper idea of what went down. I know fragments of it, I know what they've said, but I just couldn't pick it up. And that might just be me, but I'm going to assume that it is a lot to do with the book itself. I haven't read many reviews or listened to many reviews on this, but I do think that I'm being fair in terms of what I think myself. There might be a bunch of other stuff, but for me, it was very, I'll give that a very original story with cookie cutter characters, a great ending, but a really slow and horrible beginning with very confusing points at the end. So overall, I do like this book. It's not memorable in any way at all, but I am happy that I read it. I am happy because I don't read a lot of contemporary, and this really opened my eyes to it. So I'm happy I read this book. And in terms of a recommendation of White Pine, this book, if you're into Stephen King, drop this a go. I do like it, and I think it is worth your time if you can get through it in a couple of days. Don't spend weeks on it like I did. It'll just destroy it for you. So I'm gonna end up giving it a 3-star review because, well, 4-star means I liked it, and I would say go ahead and read it to pretty much anyone, but a 2-star is I don't like it. So 3 seems pretty fitting for me. It was fine. So basically, what I want you guys to do is let me know in the comments down below if you're going to be taking part in White Pine, because I would love to know. I would love to know what books you're reading, because I'll be trying to review any White Pine books that I do read. I'm planning on reading Bun O'Lear or something like that. I forget the name, and maybe Mosaic. Those 2 seem good. Maybe I'll try to read all 5 just to get to that vote, but I don't know. I know that this I have read, and I don't know if I'm gonna read anymore. So do let me know down below. That would be very, very cool. I would love to hear it from you. And let me know if you enjoyed the book, if you've read it. So please let me know in the comments down below. If you comment on this video, I will absolutely respond. And if you like this video, I thank you very, very much. Make sure to subscribe for other White Pine reviews and a lot of Stephen King, a lot of fantasy, and a lot of other cool books on the way. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.